Yeah, I think it puts on full display the extent to which he and the vast majority of Republicans aren't actually in this for legitimate reasons. They're just doing it to stoke panic about trans people because they recognize that as a culture war issue, it benefits them. Look, going back to Nancy Mace, she explains on a weekly basis how she was the victim of sexual assault, including in this very previous segment with you. And yet, and to that point, I feel for her, and I think that's absolutely also awful. But she also breathlessly supports somebody like Donald Trump, who is an adjudicated rapist and who was credibly accused of sexual assault by 26 different women.
In today's video, Brian Tyler Cohen absolutely destroys Piers Morgan and his MAGA panel in a brutal on-air clash over Trump, trans rights, and foreign policy. This Brian versus Piers showdown shows just how easily Brian Tyler Cohen dismantles Piers Morgan's spin with straight facts and zero hesitation. Let's watch how Brian Tyler Cohen leaves Piers Morgan speechless in this must-see debate.
So the cognitive dissonance at play here, first of all, is incredible. But second of all, with regard to Nancy Mace, with regard to Donald Trump, we know why they're doing this. Nancy Mace is not afraid of Sarah McBride chasing her into the bathroom. She's not. She wants to fundraise off this. She wants to be social media famous. She wants to be... Nancy Mace has more ambition to be famous online than every single member of Jersey Shore.
Doesn't mean she's wrong.
It means that she's doing this to help herself, and she's not actually concerned about this issue.
Yeah, but Brian, come on, look.
Hang on, Brian.
A politician doing something to help themselves. If that was a criteria for why we shouldn't listen to them, we'd never have anybody to interview, right? So of course,
I get it, but that doesn't mean we can't call. That doesn't mean we can't call them out.
No, it doesn't mean I can't call you out on the fact that she.
Self-concerned.
I don't think it makes her wrong. So it may be she has other vested interests, but it doesn't necessarily make her wrong.
If she was actually looking for a legitimate way forward, she would do exactly what Geraldo did, which is instead of beating the drum about this and vilifying Sarah McBride to the ends of the earth, this woman who has, by the way, operated with nothing other than class and grace since the moment she was elected to her position, she would have actually just sought a solution. But nowhere in the days and weeks of her, like doing the fainting couch spell, has she brought forward any single indication that she's willing to look for a solution? She hasn't said, let's get a different balance. She hasn't said that she's willing.
She has the solution. You ban it. I mean, just bang. That's it.
Calling for this one woman to not be able to use bathrooms is not the same as her saying...
It would be any it's not one woman. It would be any transgender people who are in Congress.
This is an attack. This is an attack. Piers, this is an attack on Sarah McBride. We all know why she's doing this. Don't play dumb here. We know that this is because she.
But I don't think transgender women should be in women's spaces. So I agree with her.
She doesn't want to shower with a man while she's at work in the locker room.
I don't think Sarah McBride is looking to shower next to Nancy Mace. And by the way, if any of these people were actually concerned, then they would all be beating their chests about what Donald Trump has done. But nobody's concerned about it. Donald Trump is, as far as the courts go, as far as these accusations of sexual assault go, he is 10 to the nth degree more dangerous than anybody like Sarah McBride. But of course, nobody talks about him because it's politically convenient because he's part of their political party.
Republicans aren't protecting women, they're protecting Donald Trump. Nancy Mace cries about safety, but defends a man found liable for sexual abuse. Trump has over 24 sexual assault accusations, but suddenly that's not a problem. They're not afraid of Sarah McBride. They're afraid of losing a culture war. Piers Morgan pretending this isn't about Sarah is a joke. Everyone sees it. This isn't policy, it's pure performance.
Piers, do you not see any irony in after years and years and years of conservatives and right-wingers and you coming forward and saying that cancel culture is bad, we hate cancel culture, this is the reason that the left is losing, and now you're calling for the view to be canceled?
I'm ahead of you. My final line says, given the enthusiasm with which the View hosts, all of them, tried so hard to cancel Donald Trump, they should maybe take their own lesson and be cancelled, because it's what they would want. Because they're now the ones, they said Trump was out of step with the American people. They said he was just a little representative of a small number of MAGA people. No, Actually, that's not the case. He's had a thumping win across the board. Therefore, the View hosts are out of step with the American people. Therefore, they should be cancelled. And I don't mean get rid of the show. I mean, get rid of them and replace them with a more balanced team. Maybe you have a few men as well. Me and Geraldo could pop in there.
Piers, Trump won his election by a 1.5% popular vote margin in the country. Joe Biden won that by 3 times that much in 2020. The notion that this is some massive repudiation of the Democratic Party and that we have to burn the whole thing down and
Brian.
Up from the ashes rise
Brian,
some phoenix
you're in denial.
is a joke.
Brian. Look,
I'm not.
to
Piers,
make your day even worse, by the way,
I'm not
I know
in
you
denial
do a
about
bit
the
of
fact
work
that
for
Democrats-
MSNBC.
Listen, let me finish talking.
Elon Musk is
I'm
about
not in
to buy
denial
you.
about the. I'm not in denial about the fact that Democrats have lost, and in fact, I more than anybody online, I'm sure on the left, has been open to this idea of introspection. What Democrats can do moving forward. But the notion that all of a sudden the Democratic Party is irrelevant when a couple million more people for the second time in this century voted for Republicans in the popular vote over the Democrats.
Come on, Brian. If I said
Piers.
to you 2 years ago, Donald Trump will win the popular vote and the Electoral College and the Senate and the House and the White House, you'd have thought I was stark raving bonkers. You'd have bet your house, you'd have bet your family, you'd have bet every penny you own that could never happen. You've been all caught napping at the wheel, right? You fell asleep at the wheel and you let him drive by and take the whole shebang. I think Democrats should take a long, hard look in the mirror and admit you've just been completely pounded into total, shameful, humiliating oblivion, and you've got to start again, and you've got to find politicians that actually resonate with the American people. And it's not the current shower you've got. Sorry.
So, Piers, in 2020, would you have said the same thing about the Republican Party that lost by a 4.5% margin nationally?
No.
Well, there you go. That's your
No, because I felt the
on full
2020.
display.
No, I'll tell you why, since you've asked. Because I felt the 2020 election was effectively a referendum on a once in a lifetime pandemic, which affected absolutely everything. If that election had taken place before the pandemic in 2020, say in February, Trump would have won, I think, by a landslide.
Now, Piers Morgan loves acting like one bad midterm means Democrats are done forever, like burn it all down, done. But Brian Tyler Cohen pushes back, and honestly, he's right. Trump lost the popular vote twice. Joe Biden beat him by over 7 million votes. That's not a fluke, that's a statement. And let's be real, when Republicans lose, Piers blames it on the media or some pandemic, but when Democrats lose, suddenly it's the end of the party? Come on. Brian points out what Piers won't say. Democrats held the Senate, crushed it in key states, and actually outperformed in both 2022 and 2023. The GOP didn't win because voters loved their policies. They won on gerrymandering, outrage, bait, and nonstop culture war BS. Brian's not just debating here, he's cutting through the spin and saying what people already know.
These two wars, Trump says he can fix them. They're very complicated, both of them, in terms of not just what's happened in the last year or two, but also historically, the history of these conflicts. Do you think he can pull off peace?
I think that Donald Trump has shown through his own rhetoric and even his cabinet appointments, including somebody like Tulsi Gabbard as DNI, I think he's shown whose side he's on. I mean, the fact that Carrie Lake can't even come forward and say that a warmongering totalitarian dictator seeking to take the territory of a sovereign country is bad and just waving her hands around about money, and that's more important than protecting the sovereignty of a free country, especially one, by the way, who is aligned with China, and they've got territorial ambitions as well, including Taiwan, and we have a vested interest in terms of our economy of having Taiwan be a free state. The fact that all of these people can't take a clear-eyed view of this because they're so aligned with, I don't know whether it's Putin and that axis of evil, whether it's just focusing on making the U.S. more like the illiberal state that Russia is. I'm not sure which one it is. I get why they see a lot of Putin in Donald Trump, and so they're putting on full display which side they're on. So do I think that they're going to seek peace for in deference to democracy in the world? No, I think that Donald Trump has already shown which side
that's
he's
where
on.
liberals go wrong when they compare Putin to Trump. It's like with all that Nazi stuff. It was so.
Yeah.
It's so.
But I didn't call him a Nazi.
It hurts me because it's.
I didn't call him
so,
a Nazi. I said
no, you didn't.
There are
you called him a
authoritarian leanings between
totalitarian.
Putin and Trump.
There's no comparison.
Geraldo,
invade
Donald Trump tried to subvert the election result. He tried to subvert a free and fair election, incited an insurrection on January 6th. Don't memory hold this.
And he was impeached for it. He was impeached for it. That's the way we judge.
You know that impeachment. You know that an impeachment process counts for nothing when you have an entire Congress.
Look, here's the part that blows my mind. Piers Morgan keeps pushing this idea that Trump could just walk into the Oval Office and magically end 2 global wars like it's a TV plot twist. But Brian Tyler Cohen shuts that fantasy down fast. Like, let's not forget, Trump was literally impeached for trying to shake down Ukraine for dirt on Biden. That's not peace, that's corruption. And while Ukraine's fighting for its life against Putin, Trump and his crew are out here refusing to even say Putin's name like it's a Voldemort situation. Brian makes it clear this isn't about strategy or peace. This is about power, plain and simple. Trump cozies up to dictators because he sees himself in them. And the scariest part, the people defending him would rather side with authoritarianism than admit he's wrong. Honestly, Brian did exactly what needed to be done here. No spin, no nonsense, just facts and backbone. Leave a like if you're with me, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.